Great changes are soon to take place in our world, and the final movements will be rapid ones. Transgression has almost reached its limit. Confusion fills the earth, and a great terror is soon to come upon the human race. The end is very near, and we who know the truth should be preparing for what is soon to break upon the world as an overwhelming surprise. The restraining Spirit of God is even now being withdrawn from the world. Hurricanes, storms, tempests, fire and flood, disasters by sea and land. They follow each other in quick succession.
We begin tonight with the monster hurricane and its deadly impact already.
In California, it was a season defined by infernos.
The Amazon is burning.
Farmers are calling on the international community to help prevent a food crisis.
Today, the World Health Organization officially announced that this is a global pandemic.
Science seeks to explain all these. The signs thickening around us, telling of the near approach of the Son of God, are attributed to any other than the true cause. Men cannot discern the sentinel angels, restraining the four winds that they shall not blow until the servants of God are sealed. But when God shall bid his angels loose the winds, there shall be such a scene of strife as no pen can picture.
The coronavirus has transformed the world, where empty streets and shuttered businesses are the norm, and billions are under lockdown.
Within just a few weeks, the world became a different place. The scare of this virus has been quite limiting. Global lockdown, social distancing, buying and selling is being limited. The Bible speaks on this. Only those who have the mark of the beast can buy and sell. But the dilemma is that those who accept the mark of the beast, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. Lest ye be lost, avoid the mark of the beast at all cost. Okay, so the coronavirus has really been running rampant in the US and the rest of the world today. And to be honest with you guys, I feel like the devil is going to use the coronavirus as a Trojan horse for the mark of the beast. to promote the mark of the beast. Here's what I mean. In Revelation 13, it talks about that there's going to be a limitation on buying and selling. That no one can buy or sell unless they have the mark of the beast. We see a little bit of that happening today. People go to the stores and they can't buy and sell unless they have a face mask on. Now, I'm not saying that the face mask is the mark of the beast. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that people are willing to go through things in order to buy and sell. There's no telling what people are willing to do in order to get their necessities, to buy their necessities. There's no telling. And that means if they have to receive the mark of the beast in order to do so, they're going to do that. And I believe that the devil is going to use coronavirus to promote the mark of the beast. I believe that the coronavirus is something that can be used as a Trojan horse for the devil to promote the mark of the beast. Now, I'm not saying also that the coronavirus is not legit. I know that there are some people out there that have coronavirus and that have COVID-19, that died from COVID-19. But I'm just saying, the devil can use that to promote the mark of the beast. COVID-19 is not the mark of the beast. Face masks, that's not the mark of the beast. What is the mark of the beast then? Some of you guys watching probably watched the movie From America to Babylon, or From Babylon to America. Those two films that we did, that we detailed Bible prophecy concluding with the mark of the beast. At the very end of those two films, we concluded what is the mark of the beast, why is it on the forehead, why the right hand, what does it have to do with buying and selling. If you guys are going to study this on your own, may I suggest that it is the mark of the beast. It is the mark of the beast. It is the beast's mark. Oftentimes when we study this subject, we study it as the mark of the beast, like it's just one thing. No, it's the mark of the beast. It's the beast's mark. If I give you a piece of paper, and on the piece of paper are the signatures of every current president in the world today, in every country that uses the presidential system. If I asked you, what is the signature of the president? You would probably ask me, which president are you talking about? Well, in a similar way, trying to figure out exactly what is the mark of the beast is useless unless we know who the beast is first. So then, who is the beast? Let's do a quick recap. Let's do a really quick study on this. Now we're only going to look at 3 characteristics Revelation 13 uses to describe the beast, the first beast of Revelation 13. Number 1 is that it's a beast. Okay. Number 2, it is blasphemous. In fact, that is found in verse number 1, that the beast has 7 heads, and on his heads the name of blasphemy. So the beast is blasphemous. And then number 3, it will rule, I think it's in, okay, here's what it says in verse 5. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. So the beast is going to rule 42 months. That's 1260 days, right? But we're talking prophecy, okay? So now there are plenty characteristics that the Bible in Revelation 13 uses to describe the beast, but these 3 should be sufficient enough for us to know who the beast is. Okay, so now a lot of people, when they read Revelation 13, they put their own opinions into this, and they make up all kinds of answers as to who the beast is. But we're going to let the Bible interpret itself. We're going to let Scripture interpret Scripture. So here we go. Verses 17 and 23 of Daniel 7, it says, these great beasts, talking about prophetic beasts, these great beasts which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. So the Bible gives us an interpretation of what a beast is. The beast, a beast, in Bible prophecy is a king or a kingdom. Watch. In verse 23 it says, thus he said the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon the earth. So A beast is a king or a kingdom or a nation or a superpower. What is blasphemy specifically in the Bible? There are three definitions, three biblical definitions for what the Bible says is blasphemy. John 9, John 10. According to John 10 and verse 33, now Jesus was speaking at this point, and he tells the Jews that his Father and himself are one. And the Jews took up stones to stone him. And here's what it says in verse 33. The Jews answered him, saying, For a good work we stone thee not, but for blasphemy, and because that thou, being a man, makest thyself God. So the first definition of blasphemy, biblical definition of blasphemy, is when a man claims to be God. And of course, this is okay for Christ because he is God. Okay? That's the first definition of blasphemy. The second definition of blasphemy now, we're going to go to Mark 14. Yeah, Mark 14, this is when the priests were interrogating Jesus Christ. And then Jesus Christ claimed to be the Christ. Watch this. Starting from verse 61, it says, Jesus Christ was being interrogated. It says here, Again, the high priest asked him and said unto him, Art thou the Christ, the Son of the Blessed? And Jesus said, I am. And ye shall see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and a coming in the clouds of heaven. So Jesus Christ was claiming to be the Christ. He says, I am the Christ. Then the high priest rent his clothes and saith, What need we any further witness? Ye have heard the blasphemy. The blasphemy that what? That Jesus Christ just claimed to be the Christ. So then, for a man to claim to be Christ is blasphemy. For a man to claim to be Christ is blasphemy. Mark 2 and verse 7, this is when Jesus Christ heals someone who is sick of the palsy. Here's what he says. Starting from verse 5, when Jesus saw their faith, he said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, thy sins be forgiven thee. But there were certain of the scribes sitting there and reasoning in their hearts, Why doth this man speak blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God only? So definition number 3 is when a man claims to have the power to forgive sin. That is blasphemy. So number 1, when you claim to be God, that is blasphemy. Number 2, when you claim to be the Christ, that is blasphemy. And number 3, when you claim to have the power to forgive sin, that is blasphemy. What is a day a symbol of in Bible prophecy? According to Numbers 14, I believe it was Numbers 14. Okay, Numbers 14, verse 34. We're going to put our finger right there, and then we're going to go to Ezekiel 4 and verse 6. Numbers 14, starting from verse 33, God says, And your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years and bear your whoredoms until your carcasses be wasted in the wilderness. After the number of the days in which ye search the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquities, even 40 years. So God makes a prophecy. He says, you guys will wander the land 40 days, but each day for a year, that's 40 years. Prophecy. A day is equal to a year in prophecy. Ezekiel 4 and verse 6, same thing. This is when God makes another prophecy. He says, For I have laid upon thee the years of their iniquity according to the number of the days, 390 days, so shalt thou bear the iniquity of the house of Israel. And when thou hast accomplished them, lie again on thy right side, and thou shalt bear the iniquity of the house of Judah 40 days. I have appointed thee each day for a year. Each day for a year. Same thing. Same concept. Same concept. A day in Bible prophecy, God says, is a year. God makes a prophecy. If it's days, those days are equal to literal years in prophecy. Okay? So, we have a beast. A beast is a king or a kingdom or a superpower. Then we have blasphemy. Blasphemy is when someone claims to be God. Blasphemy is when someone claims to be the Christ. Blasphemy is when someone claims to have the power to forgive sin. And then we have days, prophetic days. What is a prophetic day? A prophetic day is equal to a literal year. Now we're going to apply those keys in Revelation 13. Again, I'm telling you guys, there are more characteristics of the beast of Revelation 13. The Bible tells us more characteristics, but we're going to use only those three, and only those three are sufficient enough for you to realize who is the beast of Revelation 13, that first beast. Let's read Revelation 13 about the first beast, and we are going to apply those keys. And you guys will see how easy it is to really realize who is that first beast. Revelation 13. Starting from verse 1. Make sure you guys pay attention to those keys, okay? Starting from verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. So right away from the first verse, you can see that there was a beast. And that beast is a kingdom or a superpower, okay? And this superpower is going to be blasphemous. This superpower is going to claim to be God. This superpower is going to claim to be the Christ. This superpower is going to claim to have the power to forgive sin. Just from those two alone, you can kind of tell who this beast is. Who is this entity? Just from those two characteristics alone. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. We're going to stop right there. 42 months. 42 months, 30 days each month in the Hebrew calendar. 30 days each month, 42 months, 42 months, that's 1260 prophetic days. Prophetic days. What is a day symbol of in Bible prophecy? A literal year. So that's 1260 literal years that beast is going to rule the earth. So we have a beast, a kingdom, a superpower, who is blasphemous. He will claim to be God. He will claim to be the Christ. He will claim to have the power to forgive sin, and he will rule 1260 literal years. Who is this beast? None other than the papacy. None other than the papacy. Does the papacy claim to have someone who claims to be God? Did you guys know that the Pope calls himself the Holy Father? This is universally known. The Pope calls himself the Holy Father. The Pope even calls himself the Vicar of Christ, Vicarius Christi, or Vicar of the Son of God, Vicarius Filii Dei. That is the replacement Christ. That means they believe that the Pope is Christ. They even mention it in their catechisms. They say, does the Bishop of Rome speak? It is Christ who speaks. Christ is hidden under the veil of flesh, they said about the Pope. They claim that whoever has the seat of the Pope, that person is Christ under the veil of flesh. They're claiming to be Christ. Does the papacy claim to have the power to forgive sin? It's called the confessional, where you go in a confessional and you confess your sin to a priest, a human priest, not to God, a human priest. That is blasphemy. Was the papacy ruling for 1260 literal years, 538 AD to 1798 AD? Look it up. The papacy ruled 1260 literal years. So who is the beast of Revelation 13? None other than the papacy. So there is no doubt that when we apply the interpretation given to us in the Bible, the beast is none other than the papacy. The beast is none other than the papacy. The papacy is a superpower. In fact, it is a combination of political and religious powers. It is a superpower. The papacy is blasphemous. The head of the papacy, the Pope, claims to be God on earth. He calls himself the Holy Father. He claims to be Christ. The official title of the Pope is Vicarius Filii Dei, or Vicarius Christi, which means the replacement or the Vicar of the Son of God, or the replacement Christ. And the papacy claims that it is an entity that has the power to forgive sin in the confessional. That is blasphemy. That is blasphemy. Did the papacy reign 1260 years? Yes, it did. Pagan Rome gave the papacy its seat and authority in the year 538 AD. And in the year 1798 AD, Napoleon Bonaparte was sick and tired of taking orders from the Pope, and he ordered his general Berthier to go and arrest the Pope for pretty much absolutely no reason at all, ending the reign of the papacy. The papacy was still there. The papacy was still there, but they had no power during that time. So the papacy did rule 1260 literal years. So there is no doubt that the papacy is the first beast of Revelation 13. There is no doubt. So now that we know who is the beast, we know that the papacy is the beast. What is the mark of the beast? What is the papacy's mark of authority? And what does it have to do with this pandemic? So what was your initial thoughts on this pandemic? What was going on through your mind when you saw all these things happening in the news?
Well, I first heard about the pandemic via social media, and I believe probably most of the world did as well. I believe I first heard about it on Facebook. It came across as a news article.
I would encourage anyone when they see things on the news, particularly, that they shouldn't accept it wholesale. You should search things out. You should never allow your opinion and your thought process to be formulated off of one media outlet or news media outlet.
I remember back in January when I first heard of it, I saw videos of people just dropping dead in the middle of the street. I saw videos in China, the hospitals just packed with people. So I'm like, yo, this disease is crazy. So
anytime I hear of like a really big event, like a major event that makes mainstream media and they just keep pushing it, my antennas go up. I start looking for red flags. I start listening out for inconsistencies in the narrative, because it seems to be a frequent pattern. There seems to be a pattern of the media says one thing, but all the evidence says something else.
Generally speaking, the news media tells the truth initially, but as the story progresses, they continue to ad-lib and put things in there to make people more concerned and more worried.
Well, did you think that it was going to be this bad that they had to mandate a stay-at-home order? Or
I did not see that coming, but when I heard that, little phrases like that, then I started really paying attention even more.
You know what we're like as mankind, there's just so much being thrown at us on a daily basis. I didn't take it serious, and I didn't think it would be this bad or develop into what it eventually did.
Initially, I believed that they would just cut off access to China, but then they started actually shutting down access to other countries as well. And it was actually pretty interesting to me how quickly this thing spread according to the sources, and that they were so quick in an unprecedented manner of shutting things down so forcibly and so quickly without truthfully knowing or understanding why, or giving information, valid information to individuals why they would do so.
I know that the beast's power has to take small steps, has to start taking away freedoms little by little to get us to this place where there's going to be a whole beast system. So when I heard that, I took precautions, and I bought a lot of canned goods and things like that, but I can't say that I expected it.
So there's this video going around of an official from Chicago making the statement that even if a person is COVID-19 positive, but the person didn't die from COVID-19, that they still listed as COVID-19 death. What are your thoughts on that?
That's very sketchy. Why would you be marking COVID-19 deaths on anything that's not COVID-19?
Exactly.
To me, that's deceptive. That's deceiving the public. That's trying to push something that's not real.
It's very interesting that someone would want to do that, that they would label your death as something that it really isn't, in order to make the thing seem worse than it actually is, because basically that's what's happening.
So yeah, I don't doubt it at all, because to me those numbers were skyrocketing way more than what I saw with my own observation. Yeah, that's definitely sketchy to me. To me, that's deceptive. That makes me automatically think you have some kind of agenda.
Exactly.
Like, why would you lie at all about a disease unless you already have something ready to roll out? All through history, there's create a problem, offer a solution. Mm-hmm. This is how you roll out an agenda. You're not going to just overnight take over a world. Hitler didn't take over the world overnight. He didn't. It took small steps to deceiving the public into thinking this race of people, this nationality of person is not human, and they're actually slowing the evolution process, so it's okay to exterminate them. That didn't happen overnight. That was small steps. So
one particular article, a pathologist or emergency room doctor was stating that why couldn't an autopsy be done to verify whether that particular person had COVID or not? And they were told on uncertain terms, no, we're not doing autopsies. They had a symptom of it, and it's most likely related to COVID death.
Yeah, and there are also talks that the number of people infected are actually higher than they say, and so that makes the death rate even lower than what they say. So what are your thoughts on that?
It's the fear factor. You know, the Bible tells us in Luke chapter 21, verse 26, that men's hearts shall fail them for fear, for looking after the things that are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken.
When fear is used, whether it's by the government or any agency, usually it's because they want obedience with something. They want a particular reaction, or they want a result.
So if someone is afraid of something, especially something that they can't see and tangibly touch, it makes it easier to control them. Exactly. It makes it so much more readily accessible for an individual to believe wholesale the individuals that are supposed to be there for their common good, that are supposed to be there for their safety. And a lot of things, sadly, are being pushed in the name of safety.
I heard the fatality rate was 3%, and that was in people with weak immune systems, elderly, things like that. So that's really why I had no concern when I first heard about this. But yeah, if they're saying that in actuality, a lot of people have COVID-19, but they're not dying from it, yeah, then the numbers go down even lower, and this is less of a threat.
So if they are offered the right price, they tell you anything. Try this new drug, or you need this treatment. This is the only way, because they're getting kickbacks from the pharmaceutical companies. And this is a multi-billion, maybe even trillion-dollar industry. And this is something that the viewers could easily look up and see, that the pharmaceutical companies pay big dividends to the medical professionals. So these medical professionals will push certain things upon you so that they can get a kickback on the back end. You are none the wiser, and your health is suffering and diminishing while these doctors and even nurses are getting big checks that they're taking to the bank and cashing, and living in condos, beach homes, driving hundreds of $1,000 cars at your expense. That's why these numbers would be trumped, because somebody has something to gain while we have everything to lose.
They're using this to put fear in people, to prime them for something perhaps like a vaccine, right?
Fear equals control. You can't just take control over masses of people without something pushing them to look for some kind of a savior, look for some kind of help. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm saying if the numbers are being skewed, there's an agenda behind that. And the only thing that I can think of would be to cause fear and panic so that we can start chiseling away more freedoms.
Well, most definitely, I believe that this is being used as a fear tactic to make individuals end up taking some type of medicine or some type of procedure. It's to see whether or not people would be so easily willing to give up their freedoms.
The Bible says that all the world will be deceived by sorcery. That word sorcery being the Greek word pharmakia, and that directly links to our pharmaceutical companies. So, yeah, I would not willfully take a vaccine. I have a hunch that they're going to try to force it, mandate it by law, and that's cause for concern.
Yeah.
It should make anybody concerned that the government is going to force you to take an injection that has God knows what in it.
Just got back from the store. People are wearing their masks and gloves out here in Chicago, and all kinds of other stuff, scarves. In grocery stores, plastic covers are put up in between in the cashiers and the customers in order to protect the cashiers from potentially infected customers and vice versa. And 15 states now, I believe, require for people to get their temperatures taken before they go into the stores. Buying and selling is being limited. They are also limiting how much of each product we can buy from the stores and things like that. And what happens if numbers get so spiked up that they're going to have to mandate, let's say, vaccine, right? Vaccination for people to take in order for things to get back to quote, quote, normal, or in order for people to go inside the stores to buy and sell, because who knows, you might be infected. And if you don't get your vaccine, then we can't let you in, or we can't trust you, or we can't let you touch our items, and we can't let you touch our employees, or we can't let you make transactions because you're touching your card, you're touching your paper money, and you're giving it to the cashier. You might infect them. You know what I mean? Since there is a transaction when it comes to buying and selling, since there is a transaction, what if they say no vaccine, no buying and selling? No vaccine, no buying or selling. What if that's what they say? Let me show you guys something really quick. Okay, so just printing some DVDs. Who want DVDs from America to Babylon? We got plenty of those. So for those of you guys who want some DVDs for you, for yourself, for some of your friends and family, go to the website, schoolforprophets.tv. Anyways, I just wanted to show you guys something really quickly. Okay, remember we were talking about the whole mandatory vaccination thing, this whole coronavirus thing? I want you guys to check this out. Okay, it's called Event 201. It's called Event 201. Let's read this together. About the Event 201 exercise. Event 201 was a 3.5-hour pandemic tabletop exercise that simulated a series of dramatic, scenario-based, facilitated discussions confronting difficult, true-to-life dilemmas associated with response to a hypothetical but scientifically plausible pandemic. 15 global business, government, and public health leaders were players in the simulation exercise that highlighted unresolved real-world policy and economic issues that could be solved with sufficient political will, financial investment, and attention now and in the future. The exercise consisted of pre-recorded news broadcasts, live staff briefings, and moderated discussions on specific topics. These issues were carefully designed in a compelling narrative that educated the participants and audience. The Johns Hopkins Center of Health Security, World Economic Forum, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation jointly proposed these recommendations. Bill Gates, one of the world's top supporters of vaccination, not just vaccination, but mandatory vaccination. They were simulating or practicing, these MDs or doctors, nurses or whatever, they were practicing on what they should be doing when a pandemic shows up. When did this take place? When did this event take place? October of 2019. A couple months before coronavirus was even announced as a pandemic. How convenient. How convenient. It was as if they were actually preparing MDs, doctors, nurses, and other staff for a coming pandemic. Bill Gates hosted and funded the event, a strong supporter for vaccination, not just vaccination, but mandatory vaccination. Mandatory vaccination. The public execution of George Floyd, the riots going on in every major city in America. The riots going on in every major city in America, people coming together to riot in the midst of a pandemic. What is going on? Trump is now calling for National Guard, preparing National Guard. He is prepared to call on the military forces, he said. Let me show you. Check this out. Trump plans to use active duty military forces to deal with growing protests. National Guard, Pentagon brass on streets in U.S. Capitol. President Donald Trump on Monday promised to mobilize active duty military assets to deal with growing nationwide protests with or without the consent of local officials. What is that? Martial law. I didn't say this. Today I have strongly recommended to every governor to deploy the National Guard in sufficient numbers that we dominate the streets. We dominate the streets, Trump said in national address from the White House's Rose Garden. Mayors and governors must establish an overwhelming law enforcement presence until the violence has been quelled. If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them. Wow. Wow. So you guys see right there. You guys see right there how rapid things are coming up. How rapid things are coming to pass. We have this pandemic. We have riots going on, and now we have National Guard in play. Military forces. Bill Gates is flirting with this mandatory vaccination. What's going to happen? What's going on? You know what I see happening? I see all these riots taking place. Then the higher ups are going to say, those people who rioted because you guys were not 6 feet apart, you guys have to take mandatory testing for coronavirus. We are going to limit your buying and selling. And now that National Guard and the military forces are in play, we can use military forces to surveil the stores where you can buy and sell. If you are not tested, then you cannot buy or sell. If you don't get vaccinated, then you cannot buy or sell. Now, I'm not saying that vaccination is the mark of the beast. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that the devil can use vaccination as a means to bring about the mark of the beast. So, digital certificates and contact tracing app. What do you feel about this?
It sounds good at first. It would be good if the disease was as deadly as they said it was. But since it's not, since they're lying about that, this whole contact tracing thing is another sinister agenda.
I've also heard about contact tracing. Do I think that there are any benefits to it? No.
From what I've heard, it's something that Bill Gates came out with, big shock. I don't understand why this man has a huge platform as the voice of the health community when he's a computer programmer. He's not a government official. He's not a politician. He's not a doctor. So I don't understand why we see his face all over the media when it comes to the pandemic.
Even though they claim that they are simply just connecting to your smart device and seeing if you are in a highly trafficked COVID area, if your device has come into contact with someone who has stated or claimed that they have either been infected with COVID or they themselves have come into contact with others with COVID. This means that this tracking system, this trace app, can actually follow everything that you're doing.
I don't know if you have an iPhone or not, but I have an iPhone, and I was surprised that when I heard this, that one of my updates on my phone actually included the digital tracing. So I'll just read it to you real quick here. Oh, wow. It's for the Apple iPhone. It was the iOS update 13.5, and it came up about 2 weeks ago. Here it is verbatim. iOS 13.5 speeds up access to the passcode field on devices with Face ID when you're wearing a mask, and introduces the Exposure Notification app to support COVID-19 contact tracing apps from public health authorities.
If you refuse, let's just say you refuse to get a vaccine, when the vaccine comes out, they can use this digital certificate to say that if you don't have one, you can't travel. The only way you can get it is if you get the vaccine. Right. The only way you can get it is if you are tested for the coronavirus, so we can all see whether or not you are deemed dangerous or not.
They can monitor you already. They have your cell phone number and you're connected to the network. All they have to have is your number, and they can locate your device. They can triangulate, they can check your messages.
If you really do have a weak immune system and you're really concerned about this, there's a benefit to knowing who's around your area and you can keep your distance, and that would be the safe thing. The downside to that would be who's receiving this information. There's a huge database out there, obviously, and those powers that be that would want to force a vaccine knows right away who has it and who doesn't have it, right, and they could just show up at your door.
Exactly.
If it's really contact tracing, then we're talking about real-time surveillance, knowing where you're at by a GPS. You could literally be approached by a local cop while you're, at Walmart or whatever.
Yeah, man, and it's scary. It's scary that they could just check the contact tracing app. They can show up at your door and check your digital certificates, see if you're vaccinated or whatever. But actually, Bill Gates is one of the strong supporters, actually the strongest supporter of vaccination, and he's actually funding the research for vaccination, which makes me wonder, why Bill Gates?
We know as a society, you don't necessarily need an expert in a field to lead the masses. So Bill Gates is the founder of Microsoft.
This is a computer programmer. I'm not sure why he is uplifted as this, advocate for our health, but
right.
You know, when I've seen multiple videos of him saying that vaccines could be used to lower the population, I don't like that. You know, I think anybody should question that and not trust anyone that says that.
Right.
He appears from the videos that I've watched on him and the press conferences that he's held that he's very concerned about this, and he's taken this personal on himself as his cause. He's involved also, like you said, in donating in many charities.
Many people love a good human interest story, a humanitarian, a philanthropist. They love those things. He has all this money and look what he does. He's helping people. He's doing this, he's doing this. When people give people money, it's hard to speak against them. And in a sense, it's almost like you're being paid to be silenced. Even if you do have a negative thought or feeling about the individual, it's hard to wave it off, or it's hard to say anything when this individual is funding you and giving you all this money. So most people won't say anything.
Bill Gates has donated more than $36 billion to date for charities around the world, including $4.8 billion just last year. So the public likes him. He's well-spoken. He's a business person. He's investing in the charities. These charities basically are around poverty, health, and the well-being of people.
I don't trust anything that he's putting out because I have reason. I have reason. He admitted it from his mouth that vaccines will lower the population growth.
I don't know if you're familiar with Pastor Jeremiah Davis. He had a study on the 2030 agenda, and the idea is that by 2030 the world would be so overpopulated that all the resources of this earth will be used up and this world will no longer survive. So in order to stop that from happening, either kill people to depopulate the world, limit the buying and selling of these natural resources, or both.
Wow, you know what? That sounds like a perfect narrative for somebody that wants to take over the world, you know?
They were just stating that they knew that there was a time coming in about 20 or 30 years that we would start to see food shortage, clean water, land mass, because you have the majority of the Earth's population that's only living on less than 5% of the Earth's land mass.
Depopulation of the world is nothing new. It's just a lot more clear now.
Convince the masses that you're causing your own demise. You're the ones destroying the planet if you don't do something totally drastic that your children and your grandchildren are not going to have a place to live. That's the way that you can, control people.